Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you all are doing great. I'm Yasmin Taj, editor ETHR World International and head branded content at the Economic Times. And I welcome you all to this interesting LinkedIn Live discussion on the topic Keeping the Humanness at Work Alive. So, are you ready for a chat that will ignite your passion for creating a more human and sustainable workplace? Well, you're in for a treat because we have two amazing leaders joining us today who are experts in their respective fields. In recent years, businesses have shifted towards prioritizing employee well being, sustainability, and adaptability. This has been driven by the growing awareness of the impact of businesses on the environment and society, as well as changing values of consumers and employees. Today's discussion with our esteemed leaders will deep dive in understanding the big question of how can CEOs keep the humanness alive at work while focusing on preparing their organization for a sustainable future. Our leaders will explore how businesses can create a positive work culture that promotes diversity, inclusion, mental health, and work life balance. And it gives me immense pleasure to host Dato Indira Dr. Ahmed Sabirin Arshad, President and Group CEO at Serum Berhad, who has been managing various stakeholders including government, corporate and academia, sustainability, ESG, and quality processes. And our second speaker for today would be Kenny Ong, the CEO of Malaysia's number one radio network, Astro Radio, and Rocket Fuel Entertainment and Director, Astro Media, who is spearheading integrated media solutions and driving advertising revenue across Astro Group's media properties. So, Dato Indira and Kenny, thank you so much for joining us for this session. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Great. The pleasure is all ours, and we are really excited to hear your views. We are excited to understand how you, as CEOs, are focusing on creating workplaces that are more human and that are more prepared for a sustainable future. So, really looking forward to the discussion. A quick note for our lovely audience before we move forward. This LinkedIn Live discussion is the precursor to our upcoming conference, Future Forward Malaysia chapter, happening on the 18th of May at the beautiful Grand Hyatt, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. It is going to be a day filled with amazing sessions and star speakers, including our very own Dato Indira and Ken Yong. So make sure to mark your calendars and join us there. Also, for today's discussion, feel free to post your questions for our leaders in the comments section, and we will try and take them up during or after the discussion. So, now, without further ado, let me start with the first question for our speakers. So, the future of work will be more focused on well being, sustainability, adaptability, and becoming more human. And we are becoming more and more aware of this fact. As a CEO, Dato Indira, I'd like to ask you first, how does keeping the human aspect of work alive make business sense to you?
Okay, thank you, Yasmin. I think in our professional views, we have gone through in my years of managing people. Now with the digitalization coming in place, the thing that keeps people as human is three things. One is to be able to touch impact their minds, touch their heart, and impact the pockets. So these are the three elements that I have always been emphasizing over all last many years. We must make sure that we put emphasis on their minds, intellectually challenging them, make sure that they are good at heart, they're passionate about their work, and we must be able to pay them well as well for them wanting to stay with us. So these are the three aspects. Once we take care of these three aspects, we will keep human as human within our own workplace. Thank
And
you.
how does, yeah, thanks, Dato. Dato, how does this make business sense to you if you're focusing on these three aspects, as you very rightly said, the mind, the heart, and also their pockets? How does becoming and this focus add to your business objectives?
Okay, once they have these three elements being taken care of by
Yes,
the leaders in the organizations, their mind is much focused. They don't have any more issues in terms of having to do second job, third job. They
yes,
they are more focused on delivering the task at hand, and they know that they have enough money to sustain their livelihood at some standards.
yes,
And spiritually also, they know that what they're doing is good for the communities, good for the nation, and good for the countries as a whole. And
yeah.
now with the ESG coming in place, they know whatever they're contributing, we will sustain the entire planet for the future generations to enjoy.
Absolutely. Thanks. Thanks for sharing that, Dato. I think it makes a lot of sense that when you focus on your people, they focus on their work and they're more productive, and that eventually leads to making more business sense. Kenny,
That's
I'd like
right.
to hear you. Yeah, thank you. Kenny, I'd now like to hear you. How, as a CEO, how has this been very important for you? How is keeping the human aspect of work alive making business sense for you?
I think it starts from the fact that businesses are becoming more and more complex. If you go
Mhm.
back many years ago, businesses were very simple, right? You have a product, you sell, you make money, and then that's it. You need very few people to do that.
Yeah.
And later automation came in and we need less people. But we are now in an era where businesses are becoming more and more complex. There's so many things to juggle that the human part of it becomes more and more critical. There's, robots can only do so much, AI can only do so much. But if you talk about the complexity of the businesses we have today, it's not just about, doing our core business, but we're talking about like innovation, expansion of new markets. We're talking about how do we create a greener earth. We are talking about, ESG. We're talking about CSR. We're talking about all these things that you need a lot of different kinds of people put together because of how complex it is. And only humans actually are created with that kind of design in mind to be able to manage those complexities. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
again, IT and robots can only do so much. You put in one, you come out one. But again, to manage really, really complex creative matters, that still requires a lot of very, very good people. I think the most important part of all these things to me, beyond all this, is I think passion. So if you have a lot of people, but the people don't have passion, it's very hard to drive the business forward. So I think as far as engaging people are concerned, I think the one of the key factors is that is to be able to have that kind of motivation and passion in your people so that it can drive your business forward. So that's my view.
Thanks, Kenny. I think that does make a lot of sense. As a CEO, if you're saying that yes, technology is important, but it can only do so much, and we still require humans to solve complex problems, to do critical thinking, to be innovative. I think that's the kind of uh, approach and outlook we require from business leaders like you, where you think that no matter how far we grow in terms of transforming ourselves with technology, humans will remain at the core of that. So I think that's a very interesting thought to start this conversation with. Thank you so much. Coming back to you, Dato, I would now like to ask you about how creating a sustainable future of work is on every organization's agenda, and you did speak about it also right now. So, how can business leaders and CEOs like you partner with their HR teams to drive this efficiently? And how have you been doing it so far?
Okay, in terms of creating a sustainable organization, it is important for the CEO and leaders to be working closely with the HR, and especially in today's challenging and complex situation in the workplace. There's no more people who will stay for 35 years in an organization. People will come and work for 6 months or 1 year and then they move on. So we need to be able to be agile as well in terms of our employment. We have what is called as gig employment, gig economy. People come in and they go. And it is not that they are not passionate, it is not that they are not loyal, but this is how the young Gen Z is thinking nowadays. So we put this new ideas in that we want to have sustainability future in, but then we also consider the young minds at heart, that this is how the Gen Z is thinking. So we leaders need to be thinking ahead. How do we then sustain the organization? There won't be any more that is going to be 30 years in one organization. Maybe next in many more years to come, only 5 years is maximum. Then they move on. And many people we do not want to be burdened with rules and regulation. They want to be their own bosses. And how do you then employ a freelance as part of your organization? So this is an important agenda that HR and leaders must put in place. How do you incorporate freelancers, gig economy in the future workplace? And Kenny mentioned rightly just now in terms of the AI, machine learning, and whatnot. These are all spaghetti information to me, and this is all about rubbish in, rubbish out. It is about human that make sure that this information become meaningful, and something that can be used profitably as a business. So human is still the most powerful brain compared to AI and whatnot. So to me, leaders must be agile. It is no longer the one rule that fits all. We must be changing our rules every single day, and I think COVID has taught us very much about that one. Thank you.
Yes, it has. It has. That's a great thought again, Dato. So, Dato, how have you been partnering with your HR leaders or your HR team in that sense of, creating that kind of a workplace where you said that you can't expect them to stay with you for 20 years, 30 years, and you have to incorporate a gig workforce, different kinds of distributed workforce. How have you been partnering and making sure this is happening at your organization?
No, what we have done is that even if they are leaving, they are still part of family. Because
Nice.
many years ago, if you are living in an organization, they make sure that you feel bad that you did something wrong. But now, even if you leave, you are still our partners. So we actually this group of alumni, group of alumni, those who has been with us, they can still contribute even from outside. I am a
Nice.
firm believer that people can contribute into an organization even if they are not within the organization. And similarly with the entire country as well. I can live in India, I can live in New York, and I can still contributing to my country. I don't have to
Exactly.
be in my country anymore. So the world to me is a global village now. We
Yeah.
cannot be silo anymore. So that's how I look in the big picture.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at the bigger picture. As you said, that it doesn't matter whether you're associated, whether you're on payrolls as per, in an organization. If you can contribute, if you can come together and work for a common cause, I think that's where it all leads to. So thanks for sharing that, Dato. Kenny, what are your thoughts on how can you partner with your HR teams to create more sustainable futures for your workplace, and how are you doing it right now?
I think both sides have to meet, right? The business and HR. I think that's crucial, and that's been going on for many years, and it will continue to be true for many
Yeah,
years to come. So on one side, I think for us, we are blessed to have HR people who understands the business, or if they don't really understand, then we have to drag them in and really make them understand what the business is. Because most HR people, so there are two kinds, right? One are HR people who only know HR things. They don't really know what the business is. They don't know how the P&L is run. They don't know what is your cost structure. They don't know how you do your capex. They don't know how to do your opex. Stuff like that. They don't know what are your gross margins. So if HR don't understand these kind of things, it's difficult for them to be dynamic. And that's something that we bring in HR into our teams to fully understand. Though HR sits in our management meetings, they sit in our P&L meetings, so they understand some of the things that we go through in terms of, do you want to augment HR with capex, or do you want more opex? Do you want to have upskilling? If you don't upskill, this will affect whatever scores that you. So I think once they are part of it, so to be able to get the HR people to understand the business, that's one. But I think on the other side as well, it is important, like I said, for both to meet, is for CEOs and for managers to understand HR. Again, it's very convenient to say that this is a HR matter, let HR handle. I don't want to know anything about it. But if you don't even know the basics of like IR, right? If you don't know the basics of managing performance, what are the steps? What is a performance management system? What are the crucial components of HR? What is compensation and benefit? What are critical factors in remuneration principles? If you don't know how those kind of stuff, then you can't even manage your own team. And what happens is that then you let HR handle this, and then HR will find their way of handling it. After a while, you find that it's not being done the way that you want it to do, because you yourself don't understand HR principles. So there are a lot of things that I think leaders and CEOs have to learn as far as HR is concerned, and you have to learn, a lot of very basic things about HR to be able. So I think once you have that, then both are able to meet. Then you can have a very good relationship between the two.
Yes, and I think I would like to add that the pandemic played a big role in being a catalyst for this relationship to become stronger between HR and business leaders. I think HR began to understand business more deeper, understand what are the needs of the business, and align workforce accordingly. Similarly, business people, leaders, CEOs started to understand HR better, how important it is for people for businesses to focus on people. I think this is how the pandemic brought the focus on these two things and then brought them together. And today, I think we can see the whole camaraderie working very well between HR and business. And I think that's how it will lead to the future as well. They're no longer isolated and working in silos. So thanks for sharing that, Kenny. I think it makes sense. Kenny, I'd like to ask you only next. My question is now about, we did talk about how the CEO's role is very, very important in creating a culture and where they engage with their workforce one on one, and how this helps in increasing trust and loyalty. How do you think this will help in the long run, and how do you think can CEOs make this engagement better?
Okay, so first off, culture is a very dangerous word to use because culture means very different things to different organizations, right? So you cannot use one catchphrase and then everybody have the same kind of culture. So every organization, first you must determine what kind of culture is suitable for your organization. So you can't follow. So for example, if I'm here and I look at, for example, Google, and I try to copy Google, but if your organization, your business is not like Google, you shouldn't follow the culture of Google. So that is very important to understand, that culture cannot be learned from downloading, Google search and say what's the best way for culture and try to follow the 10 steps. So I think that is the last thing you should do. As a big mistake a lot of people make, right? So first you have to know what the culture is that you need for your particular organization and your particular business, and then build the culture around it. So number one, how to build the culture, that one is something else altogether. Each leader have their own way of doing it, and each leadership have their own styles. Again, different styles and different leadership cultures work differently in different times. So if you are a company that is doing very well, you're growing very fast, you need a different kind of culture. If your company is losing money and and your ship is sinking, you need a different kind of culture. If your company is a very hybrid, innovative kind of product leadership kind of thing, then it needs a different kind of culture. So you cannot have one kind of culture across the board and say that this is the culture that I want to adopt, unless you know what business you're running. So that is, like what Dato has and what Astro Radio has is a totally different culture. We wouldn't exchange culture, and we will die doing it, right? So that's the first thing. And and because of that, and then comes down to the point of CEOs engaging with the people that they have. Again, it depends on the size of the company that you have. If you are managing 20, 30 people, then yes, then one-on-one makes sense. If you are managing 3, 4, 500 people, depends on the diary of the CEO. Dato has a huge staff force. If he goes one-on-one, I think you will fill him up for the next 15 years. He won't be able to meet everybody. So again, I don't think it's a goal that you should have. I think the more important factor about that is that what kind of system and process do you have to make sure that the culture keeps on going even if you are not there, right? If the culture is dependent purely on the CEO and purely on the charisma of the CEO, you have got a problem. So if the CEO is not there, for example, take 2 leave week or doing some other business travel, and the whole thing crumbles because they say, oh, I don't see the CEO, the CEO don't care for me. If the system doesn't work and the people below the CEO are not managing the culture as well, I think that becomes problematic. So I think more important than one-on-one is for a leader to know how to know the what culture that they want, and then create a system or ecosystem to be able to have that culture that runs even when the CEO is not around. So I think that is more important.
I think those are some very, very interesting points, Kenny. I totally agree with you that culture cannot be a one size fits all. It has to be customized based on what the business is into, what kind of visions and goals do you have. I think every company works on it and has to customize, hyper personalize their own cultures based on that. And what do they want to see themselves in the future as? And secondly, as you said, that though it is very important for CEOs to connect with their people one on one, it's about building that mechanism. It could be a communication system, it could be something that you've put in place where there's regular to and fro happening between you and your people. You are hearing them somewhere, you're listening to them, they are listening to you, and at least that connection remains. I think that is going to be very important for CEOs if they want to create a culture that, as you said, remains when they are there or not, but it remains as an ecosystem working on its autopilot mode all through. I think great thoughts there. That's what I'd like to hear you next. How can CEOs build that kind of a culture, as Kenny said, and how do you think can we have that connection where CEOs can connect with their people, build more trust and loyalty?
Okay, Kenny has said that rightly as well. I have thousands of staff under me, and then they are not in one. They are all over the countries, and they're also overseas as well. It is impossible to see them one on one. But the pandemic has also taught us that we can do video conferencing with many, and I think that has accelerated the connectivity between the CEO and the subordinates. And I think, but I have also take the options to engage with them in whatever occasion that I have. I do management by walking about. I do management by meetings. I do pop up into the security guard. I pop up into the customer relations. I do pop up and do all sort of silly things just to get them to know that I am human after all. And I do believe that I am trying to get to know every single one of them by names. And to me, whenever that I call them by names, it has a different reaction. They know, wow, they said, my CEO knows me, and then when you call them in front of their colleagues, in front of the families, it gives them that different sense of pride, and it give that aura that they wanted to do more. Say, oh wow, say, if my CEO can do this, I should be doing more than what he is doing, because they know that CEO is so busy with many things. But again, I've been with this last many years, and I've seen a positive impact. And the most important thing by having all of this is you see the revenue growth is also increasing, because people are more committed to see it, and then they know that you appreciate them a lot more. And because in businesses, it's not about social gathering. You put all these networks one to one, one to many. By the end of the day, you want to see that your revenue growth is increasing. If that is not increasing, it does not mean anything. You can be very popular, but the company is going bankrupt, and we don't want that to happen. And again, with the pandemic, I think we have been able to do all these meetings, one with many, and I have been trying to schedule my diary meeting different parts of different branches all over the countries, overseas, different subsidiaries, different business units. Try to see many of them at one time, and meeting one on one is occasionally, but I try to understand where they live, and you must be able to touch their hearts. And I believe that one, that you say there, whenever there's somebody death in the family, you see condolences, birthday greetings, you say thank you when the kids do well, and even in my organization now, even if the kids finish school, we give them congratulatory marks. It is not about scoring A's anymore. To me, if they go to school, they should be applauded. They should be encouraged. To me, it is not about A's. It's about having the right attitudes. Ace doesn't mean anything to me. To many CEOs, Ace doesn't mean anything. We want people who are thinking personalities that can do much more to the organization. So I think the interaction is important. We can do that online. We can do that either in person. But at the end of the day, calling them by names create a different aura altogether. Thank you.
I think that's a very beautiful thought coming from you, Dato, working for thousands of people under you, but still making that effort to understand and know them. But personally, I think that says a lot about you as a CEO. I think, as you said, that they should also know that the CEO is human. It's not just a name that they see on screen, maybe, or on emails. I think that and Kenny very rightly said, if you put that process in place where you build those special moments here and there where you can connect with your people directly, I think that is what makes the difference when it goes to creating that culture where they trust you more, they rely on you more, and that creates an overall workplace which is more human. So thanks for sharing that. Coming to my final question, and Kenny, I'd like to ask you that first. Lastly, the theme for our future Forward Malaysia chapter conference is all about humanizing work for a sustainable future. So, as a CEO, what will be your next big priorities?
I think the priorities for myself will be quite similar to many CEOs, right? Is the key is to how do we engage the people that are working in the team, and getting the best out of them, right? So it's always the biggest challenge, because when you bring them on, the question is then how do you manage the performance? How do you manage that? I mean, from a more technical perspective, how do you manage things like job growth, career, those kind of things are more technical. But I think the other side is to how do we learn to treat people like people, not to treat them like robots. I think that's the other thing that we also need to learn how to do. So humanizing the workforce, I think to me, that word is important, because there's a difference in looking at the people as just a means to an end, and then just remembering the fact that every person that comes into your workforce, every person has their own story. I think people need to understand that each staff have their own personal life, their own family, their own challenges, their own parents, whatever background they're coming from. They are not the same. Even if they're in the same department, they're not the same person. And to be able to use that knowledge and to understand the backgrounds of the people, to at least acknowledge that every person have their own challenges and their own life, and not to treat everybody as slaves. I think that's a very crucial matter, again, because humanizing workforce is not just about getting better HR processes. It's about getting CEOs and leaders to understand that people working for you are humans,
Yeah.
and you really need. And the other, I think, problem is that something that I look at the mirror and myself is that, and a lot of the CEOs that I talk to, a lot of CEOs and leaders tend to forget how they got to where they are today. So they forget that process, and where they are, and they still think, oh, I'm the CEO today, I'm the big shot, and they forget all the challenges that they had up to today that they have. So I think we shouldn't forget where we came from, the challenges we ourselves have gone through, and we are just one of them. I think that's important to understand. So that's my point.
Yeah, I think, Kenny, that's a great realization and a great message to every CEO when you say that you are just one of them. At the end of the day, and Dato also said it, I think CEOs are also humans. And if you realize that the people working for you are not robots, they are people, they are human beings, I think everything else will fall into place. If you want to create a future that's more human and sustainable, you'll engage with your people more. You'll make sure you create those experiences for them. And, you make sure you build that culture where they feel empowered and they feel good to come to work every day. So I think that's a great thought. Thank you so much. Dato, your thoughts on that as a CEO, what are going to be your priorities for this, for making a more sustainable and more human workplace?
I agree with Kenny that it's about the humanizing the work, and then I like to add on the mention about where we are today and how do we become the CEO today. And
Yeah.
I've been the CEO. I was lucky to be the CEO for the last 30 plus years, and I have always tell people I was given the opportunity, and I am here to provide opportunities to others as well to grow. And that is the role of leaders, is to provide to grow leaders.
Yes.
And we are here to because we were given the opportunities to grow, and leaders must be able to grow leaders. And what is my next priorities in terms of growing the organization, in terms of giving them the opportunities is, I always tell this to my HR, is we must have this mantra of empathy beyond expectation. And empathy is key here, because we're not treating them as robot. They are human after all, and they have feelings. They got issues. They got other things that we don't even know. Issues with families, issues with children, issues with the finance, and we need to understand every single one of them. And especially during the pandemic, many have experiencing mental health, and we must show our empathy, and we don't scold them for the sake of because they don't follow certain procedures. We must go deep dive to understand the issues. So to me, empathy is the key, and that'll be the focus of the CEOs in the coming years, especially with the pandemics, in terms of the mental health, in terms of the moving forward as an organization. Empathy beyond expectation will be the key for us moving forward. Thank you.
Great, great. Thank you, Dato. I think, yes, it makes a lot of sense when you put yourself in the shoes of your people and try to understand what is it that is impacting them, what is it that is making them happy, what is it is it that is not, working out for them, what makes them feel overwhelmed. So I think understanding people to that level for a business leader is going to be very, very crucial going forward. As you said, I think empathy is a very, very important quality to have for leaders. That makes them more authentic, more connected to their people, and that should be the future. So thanks for sharing that. So finally, before we wrap up, Dato and Kenny, I'd like to hear maybe a line each about the session you're going to be speaking at the Future Forward Malaysia chapter. So Dato, if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Uh, uh, Again, for the conferences that is coming ahead, I'm going to be touching more of workers as human, as workforce as human, and we must treat them as human, and we are part of the workforce as well. We are not just the CEO, the bosses, but the bosses is also the workers, and these are an important stakeholders that we must mention, take care of, because we often neglect to take care of our workforce. We take care of the customers, but most importantly, it's our stakeholders, the workforce, because if they take care of them, they take care of our customers. So
Yeah.
so that's going to be the teaser for my talk in next week. Thank
Great.
you.
Looking forward to that. Looking forward. Kenny, what about you?
Yeah, I think the session that I have is focused quite a lot on CEOs and leaders, and what are their role in creating the kind of workforce that you want, the culture that you want, and how do you partner with the chief human resource officers or the HR department. I think that partnership, like I mentioned earlier, is going to be key. So that's going to be the focus about how can leaders, CEOs work together with each other to create the right culture, create the right systems, and and working hand in hand to make sure that we have a very passionate, powerful workforce.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Kenny. I think if I could summarize the conversation today, it was so much to learn from the both of you. And it's so nice to see CEOs having such great focus on humans at the workplace. As you said, that, if you can focus on the minds, heart, and pockets of your people, they will remain engaged. If you consider them humans and not robots, they will be with you, they will remain engaged with you. And if you feel that technology can do only this much, but you need people, you need humans to do the rest of the critical work at your organizations, I think that focus what will make organizations build more human workplaces and work for and have a more sustainable future. So thank you so much, Dato Indira, and thank you, Kenny, for this interesting conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So those were some truly great insights, and we can't hear both of our leaders on the 18th of May to know more about humanizing work for a sustainable future. Thank you so much once again for joining us, Dato Indira and Kenny. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of this exciting LinkedIn Live discussion. I'm sure you all must have enjoyed hearing our leaders and taken away some key learning from today's discussion. Do follow our hashtag ETFutureForwardSEA to keep yourself updated with what's cooking for the upcoming Future Forward Malaysia chapter. And do reach out to us if you wish to join us there and meet and hear our star speakers live. The link with more details has been pasted in the comments section for your quick reference. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Till then, stay tuned. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.